Okay, fam, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over Bitcoin and how Bitcoin is about ready to moonshot based on the way the charts look. So with that being said, let's get it. All right, so I'm going to go over time capitulation versus price capitulation. We'll talk about what that means in a minute, but before I do, I want to go over these other major metrics first. So starting with Google Trends crypto search term for 5 years, you guys can see this thing is basically dead. It's not going anywhere. That's exactly what we should expect to see right before the bull run actually pops off. Because again, if we go back here during 2020, what happened? It essentially went nowhere until about January. Okay, and this is for crypto. This is not for Bitcoin. But the point I want to make here, which further cements the idea that I have that basically um, the alt season is not actually going to start until Q1 of next year. You can see that this thing was starting to ramp up towards the end of that halving year, and then January, February, March, we really started to just rip straight off to the moon. So it indicates that, and it also indicates we're still very early. Again, when retail FOMO starts kicking in, this thing should be basically going straight up into the right, and we're not seeing that just yet, which indicates we're still very early. And prices, compared to probably where they will be in 3 to 12 months from now, are actually relatively cheap right now compared to future prices. Okay, so Bitcoin, next one here. So this one's a little bit different. You can see, and once again, this kind of reiterates my theory. You can see Bitcoin starting to really rip um, pretty much right about the time that we're currently at now during the previous halving year. And then it starts ripping all the way up into November, December, and then December, January starts getting stupid at that point. And that's when retail FOMO has really started kicking in. And then, December to January, that's kind of that rolling off period for money to start flowing out of Bitcoin into altcoins, going into somewhere between January to May timeframe. It doesn't mean Bitcoin can't still go up, but a lot of the money that was in Bitcoin is going to start flowing into altcoins, presumably somewhere in January 2025, based on this chart. And again, retail FOMO hasn't really kicked in. We haven't started seeing the ramp up phase yet, which tells me that we're still early, and the Bitcoin, I mean, it's not cheap really compared to the $15,000 bottom that we saw in the bear market, but it's cheap probably, in my opinion, compared to where it's going. Again, I estimate probably somewhere between 140 to 220,000. Again, $150,000 Bitcoin, as low as that target is, would not be unrealistic. The last cycle, Bitcoin went from about 3,000 to 69,000, which is a 23x. So if it did only half that, which is about 11x, we'll be generous in here. I'll be generous here and say it's basically a 12x. The previous all-time low, a 12x, that would be roughly about 180,000, which is still pretty high. I mean, that's about a 3x from the current price. So another point I want to make here is we kind of had this little tiny peak, and then we died off. And what happened afterwards, right around the same time last cycle, we started ripping to the moon. What do we have? We had a little tiny peak, then a slow falling off, kind of bleeding out. And ideally, here pretty quickly, we should start to see this Bitcoin indicator move up within the next few weeks, I would think. So fear and greed index, we're sitting at neutral right now. Again, usually when this thing is in the fear zone, that's the best time to buy. So we were there for many, many months. And what happens when we're in the fear zone, it usually ends up going up to greed, sometimes faster, sometimes slower. In this case, I think, Bitcoin's been consolidating for a very long time. So it's had plenty of time to reset multiple indicators. I think this thing is going to be moving gradually but more aggressively with time towards that kind of greed spectrum that we saw back in February, March timeframe when everybody was getting the FOMO. But I mean, this thing sitting at neutral means nothing. Essentially, it really only matters when it's in greed or fear, and we basically came out of fear. So my thinking is that we're going from fear into greed. Usually, when we're in greed, at some point we go from greed into fear. So I would say this is more bullish. All right, so MVRV, we are pretty cheap on this one. Again, the green box is the buy zone. The pink or red box, whatever color you prefer to use, is the sell zone. We're at a 2. Pretty much every time we got into these boxes, it was the almost the perfect top of each cycle. And again, we are nowhere even close to that kind of 7-8 range that we're seeing in these previous peaks. So in my opinion, this still indicates that we're very cheap and very early in crypto. Okay, so Bitcoin rainbow chart. Again, this thing is relatively low. We're kind of in that basically a fire sale buy area. And I mean, Bitcoin's been doing nothing for like 8 months. It's been kind of chopping down and sideways. That's what I like to refer to as a pullback in time. So the most important thing I want to point out here about this chart is usually right after the halving happens, we kind of sit in this blue and dark green zone for a while. You can see it almost every single time after the halving. That's exactly what happens. Okay, each one of these kind of vertical lines that says halving, that's the halving event itself. And then the Bitcoin price kind of just sits in between that blue line and that green line. And we're currently doing the same thing. And what happens every time it comes out of that? It goes to new all-time highs in 2020, in 2017, in 2013, and 2014. I don't think I need to say much more about this. Okay, so Nupal, we're kind of in neutral zone here. Again, this is neither bullish nor bearish, but again, we have had a move off of the bear market lows. The best time to, bar none, always the best time to get into cryptocurrencies is as close to Bitcoin's bear market bottom as humanly possible. We're obviously past that point. But again, based on the charts, we're kind of in that, I'm not going to call this mid-cycle, but we've had the market phase for the Bitcoin ETFs, and we're in a very bullish pattern. What should theoretically happen next? We should be continuing to the upside. Again, a bull flag, descending channel, whatever you want to call it. It's all a continuation pattern, and a bull trend basically means it should keep going up. So yeah, best time to get in on this is when it's in the green box. Again, it's rare for it to get there, but if you can get pricing, you can get any of these crypto prices, not just Bitcoin. When it's in the green box, then I mean you're golden. You pretty much have an asymmetrical bet at that point. And then of course, once it gets closer to kind of that belief, euphoria, greed, then that's kind of a warning flag that maybe it's a good time to take profit. Okay, Pi cycle top indicator. I do want to note here that it does appear that we have gotten back above the yellow EMA, barely. We're kind of just pretty much sitting right on top of it. The thing I want to point out here again that I've said every other time is basically before we get into the actual bull run itself, there is occasions where this thing will pull down below the yellow EMA or kind of test it. You could see it here, on this kind of second higher low. We got it here, and then we got it a little bit here, a little bit here. That was the true bottom back there. So we got this second higher low here. What happened? We pulled down below it. Even though this entire thing was a bull trend, you wouldn't have thought so because you see the price going down here. But when you look at the bigger time frame, this is actually a bull trend, but we're just getting higher lows. So the price came back for a higher low, and we got below it for a time before eventually continuing the bull run. Then you got your bear market low here, and then we get a pullback below it during the bull trend here, and we got one here. So in my opinion, the fact that we're back above the yellow EMA is extremely bullish. So the current prices right now are 61,170 and 112,600. The current price being not quite 63,000, 62,600 currently, but I mean, it's close enough. So the other thing I want to point out here is usually when the bull run starts, we get a kick off of the yellow EMAs and we eventually rip above the green ones. Once we get above the green ones and start blasting off to the moon, that is the last phase of the bull run for Bitcoin. Anyways, you can see it here. You can see we lifted off the yellow EMA, got above the green one, took off here. Same thing back here, lifted off the yellow EMA, got above the green one, boom, took off to the moon. So I'm expecting the lifting off of the yellow EMA, pushing into the green one to happen easily within a few weeks. I don't think it's going to take much longer than that. Okay, M2 money supply. This one's pretty simple. As long as the little green piece of the graph here, the green mountains, whatever you want to call it, is growing in size. The blue line is going up, which is the global M2 money supply, which you can see it clearly is going up. Then the black line should go up with it, which is Bitcoin. And again, every time we get one of these small green peaks, we get a bigger one. You got a small one here, then a bigger one. Kind of a small one here, but then ultimately a bigger one. So yeah, this is looking very bullish. Again, the Fed's cutting rates. All these different banks are cutting rates. I think with the exception of Japan, they're not cutting, they're just holding. But pretty much all these other guys are cutting. They're kind of all in sync with each other. That's usually how they operate. Okay, so Bitcoin monthly returns. The most important thing, and again, I would kind of want to reiterate this here, is to put things back into context for people that have doubts. And again, there's no guarantee it's going to play out this way, but the probabilities are very high. So every time we've had a green September, we have had 4 green months at the end of the year. Okay, we've had green September, October, November, and December. It happened in 2015. It happened in 2016. And again, 2016 was the halving year at that time. So we had a green September, and then the Q3 was unbelievably, impressively green. It was huge. And most years that are in bull market years, we actually usually have a green Q4. So the recovery year back here was after the bear market year of 2014. So 2015 recovery year green, 2016 halving year green, the third year of the cycle green, and then you get your bear market year in 2018. 2019, that was the recovery year. It wasn't green in November and December, but we all know why, because there was a pandemic, right? So yeah, that's kind of unfortunate what happened there. Plus, I can't remember. I think the Fed was either raising rates in 2018 or 2019, and they kind of dumped the market. So that may have had a slight effect on it. So then 2020, that was the halving year for the previous cycle, all green. As you can see, even though September wasn't green, the Q4 itself was green. And then, yeah, 2021, a little bit off there. But again, the crypto bull run cycle did end, like you can see back during the end of the bull run, November, December. That was the top in 20. Oh, my bad. So yeah, 2017 was the top. So yeah, 2018 was the bear market year. 2019, we kind of had that pullback in the second half of the year. So this one was a little off for Q4, but again, it wasn't. 2019 was not actually the halving year. So you got 2016, 2020, and 2024. So 2024 was the halving year, all green in Q4. 2023 was that, the spot Bitcoin ETFs, the recovery year, all green in 2024, just like 2015. And the halving year, which is right now, we've had September be bullish. Okay, that's green. We saw the same thing back in 2016, 2015, and 2023. What happened? Every time we had a green September, all of Q4 was green. Okay, so some other interesting things I wanted to pull up here, and these are just random things. You can see like some of these charts give a pretty good indication that we're getting pretty close to the final breakout phase of crypto and Bitcoin to go to new all-time highs. You guys can kind of look into this on your own time. I did just want to bring this up to show you guys there is other traders and analysts out there that do this kind of stuff. So you can see get the golden cross here. Boom, bull run, golden cross, bull run, golden cross, which we just recently had. Boom, bull run. And here's another interesting chart. So you kind of get this red sideways phase where you get this falling wedge, and then boom, breakout, and then you get this sideways phase. Then you get a falling wedge, which is kind of what we had here. I mean, even if it's a falling wedge or falling broadening wedge, falling microphone pattern, whatever, it's all bullish. And then boom, rip to the upside. So that's pretty interesting. All right, so the actual weekly Bitcoin chart, here's what I'm looking at. Okay, so we're going to get the MACD golden cross. Usually this does happen right about this time in the cycle. If I go back to 2020, and I have to go back a long ways, a very long ways, you can see it was actually more green during that time frame. But what happened? We got the golden cross right here, September, October, and then boom, Bitcoin started to lift. Got that break of that RSI downtrend with the golden cross on the RSI. And we're seeing something very similar right here. It's not playing out exactly like the last cycle, but you guys got to remember, history often rhymes, but it doesn't always repeat. So it may look a little bit different this time, but it should be somewhat similar in nature. So again, we're kind of looking for these higher highs, higher lows. This is what we're looking for. Okay, you got this bull flag here. How this plays out, we'll have to wait and see. But the target for that is 76,000. Puts us pretty much right back at the all-time highs. Again, if I don't know if this is going to play out exactly like my drawing. That would be kind of crazy. That's just a random drawing. But if it did happen, then we would see Bitcoin pushing against 70,000 by right around the end of next month. So again, there's a bunch of different patterns here you could say that this thing is doing. Okay, so we have a bull flag, which is a bullish pattern. We have a cup and handle pattern, which is a bullish pattern. We also have this could be considered a falling wedge, although falling wedge kind of looks a little something more like that. That's kind of more what a falling wedge would look like, but you can call it a falling wedge if you want to. That's not textbook what it would look like, but nonetheless, falling wedge, falling broadening wedge, they're all bullish. And then you also have this potential falling bullish microphone pattern that is also bullish. So now I want to talk about capitulation in time versus capitulation in price. So this goes back to trader and investor psychology, okay? What are we seeing right here? We're seeing a capitulation in time, okay? It is somewhat a capitulation in price because a lot of people are scared here. They're like, oh, well, it just keeps going down in price. It's probably just going to keep doing it. The whales, the institutions, the people that have lots of money, accredited investors, all those guys, they're looking to buy down here on these dips, okay? A lot of these people that have, hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, they have people or they themselves are looking at the charts and seeing the same things that we are. And they're saying, oh, this is a bullish pattern. I'm going to buy at the bottom of these levels here. I'm not going to sell anything. I'm just going to buy and hold because it's eventually going to break out to the upside. They know what the odds are of this going bullish. They know it's a very bullish setup. And whether their actions directly manipulate the markets or not, or whether they're, it's just a culmination of everybody involved in the markets that kind of create these patterns, that's debatable. But the bottom line is, smart money is using this as an opportunity to accumulate before going higher. And I really highly doubt they would be buying these at these high prices, or I should say moderate prices at this point, if they thought that it was just going to dump downwards, which again, technically speaking, that doesn't even make sense. Okay, so this is a combination of time capitulation and price capitulation. I want to go back here a little bit further, show you guys some examples of when this happened. So here's another good example of time capitulation. Okay, time capitulation. Once again, at the bear market lows, time capitulation, we see a very similar pattern that we have right now going on down here, kind of right around the bear market lows. What is this designed to do? It is designed to bore the hell out of people and get people to sell their bags, basically thinking like, oh yeah, the price is not going to go anywhere. We haven't gone anywhere for 9, 10, 5 months, 3 days, whatever. Depends on how patient you are. Even the most patient, most disciplined investors hate this part of the cycle because it takes forever to get out of it. And it takes forever for prices to go up in moonshot. But that's exactly what this is designed to do. It is designed to get people on the dumb money end of the spectrum to basically drop their bags. And on the smart money end of the spectrum, these guys understand what this means. They accumulate in these prices if they understand TA, knowing that this is likely going to go up ultimately at some point, okay? Here's another good example of a time when people would have just absolutely hated being in crypto or not even wanted to be in crypto. You can see how long this accumulation lasted. This one right here lasted almost 2.5 years. Can you imagine buying Bitcoin or crypto, even though it was relatively cheap at this time, for 2.5 years? The price essentially going nowhere. You could have maybe swing traded some of this, position traded, whatever, bought down here, sold up here. You could have did that, but more or less, price was doing absolutely nothing. Can you imagine 2.5 years of that? That's what we've had to do ever since we bought crypto and altcoins in the 2022 bear market lows. We've been sitting, waiting for these prices to go on a parabolic bull run. So if you think you're alone in this, you're not. But that is exactly what these are designed to do, okay? Now, the difference between time capitulation and price capitulation, this is time capitulation, okay? It's basically where they try to shake out all the weak hands, get them out of their positions as long as it takes, right? That's kind of what we're seeing right now. As long as it takes to shake out these weenies in crypto that are not really here to make serious money, not serious about the space. They're just looking for the gravy train. We're gonna shake them out by making it take forever and a day. to moonshot and causing them to lose their patience. And anybody that stuck around, well, they'll get rewarded most likely. Whereas something like this right here, this is price capitulation. Okay, so you get a massive blow off top and then a massive dump. Kind of similar here, massive blow off top, massive dump. 2017, massive blow off top, massive dump. And then 2013, 2014, you can see very clearly here, massive blow off top, massive dump. That is what's known as price capitulation. And that scares the hell out of a lot of people. So you can either be scared out of your position with price capitulation, or you can be basically bored to death out of your position with time capitulation. So what we're currently seeing is time capitulation. Again, there was no major blow off top here. Okay. If this thing was a blow off top, I would have expected it to do maybe something like this and then boom. Again, it wouldn't go straight down like that, but you kind of get the point. It would not have taken this long to actually dump. And again, we have not seen a dump, but that's kind of the point. It hasn't dumped yet, which means likely it's going to go to all-time highs based on everything we look at. Okay, so last thing I want to go over here is the yearly time frame. Again, this is just a 10,000 foot view to kind of put things in perspective here. Every single cycle that we've ever seen on the 12-month time frame, with the exception of maybe the first cycle, 2011, 2012, 2013, we had 3 years of green, 1 year of red. Okay, 2013 was the last year of green for this cycle back here, and then we had 2014 bear market year. What happened after that? 3 green years. 2016 is a halving year. That's those vertical white lines. Bear market year in 2018, 3 green years afterwards. 2020 was the halving year. 2022 bear market year. 3 green years. We're in the second year currently. This is the halving year. What usually happens after the halving year itself is green. And then we get a third year, which is next year before 2026, which should be the bear market year, excuse me. Okay, so that pretty much wraps it up. I know we didn't cover ETH Bitcoin dominance, and the altcoin market today, but this video is kind of running on a little bit long, so we'll cover that in a separate video. So this should pretty much paint a picture. Again, Q4 is usually bullish. We're going into earnings. Earnings is probably going to be good based on what I've seen. So I don't think there's any reason to worry. It's just a matter of patience. And again, I can't tell you guys what to do. You can do what you want to with your own money, but we have no intention of selling our bags until we're massively in profit. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.